because it's getting kind of late in the evening, I do this with a little bit of mild peril, as they say on the back of the DVD boxes. And also because somebody tweeted that the problem with WebRTC is that it isn't mobile first and everything else is. So I thought I'd do this presentation from an Android phone. So you'll have to bear with me if it goes hideously wrong. So I want to talk about the Phono API. Phono API is a web developer-friendly jQuery API. And the idea is to allow you to embed voice with PSTN via Tropo, messaging and video into your browser apps. It's cross-browser and it's cross-platform. So the idea is that you can focus on that and not get buried in SIP registration and the other stuff that you hopefully don't need to get that call through. So we're focusing on making that really easy for web developers, of which there are a huge number. And so they're our target market. So we're going for any platform. So we do Chrome. If we detect that we're on Chrome, then we use WebRTC. If we detect that we're on Firefox, we use WebRTC as of yesterday. If we detect that we're on IE or Safari, then we load a Flash plugin. But the API that the developer sees is identical. So there's no changes needed for them if they see that different platform. We run on Android in the Chrome beta, which is what I'll show you in a minute. And we have on iOS and Android, we have native apps, native stacks, which implement exactly the same API. Obviously, in iOS, it'll be Objective-C, and on Android, it's Java. But we're implementing a very similar API to what you see in JavaScript, so that the developers are, again, comfortable with that, and they can get on with their real job of making brilliant apps. So we do this anywhere, and to the extent it's been such a popular API that we open source the client side. You can find it on GitHub. And that API has been cloned by a few people, forked, as GitHub calls it, by several groups, and then implemented against their own backend. So it's a popular API. Now, obviously, we'd like you to use our backend, but you don't have to. That's the point about open source. And there are carriers who are adopting it. We run a big cloud service called Phono.com that you can use. But if you're big enough and you have a security reason, for example, you might choose to run that in a private cloud, and we'll license that to you. Or in my case, and a few other people, it's small enough that you can run it on an Atom processor. It's not a huge gateway. See fewer calls if you're running on a small box, but it's still perfectly possible. So it does all that range of deployment options. We do all the standards. We do Opus, we do DTLS. We can do SIP to IMS. We can also do web-based identity with OAuth. So we don't want to try and pin you down to, this is the way to do it. We want the web developers to have their options so that they can support whichever method of identity suits them. And we're working with the Firefox people on the IDP and the standards people on the IDP side to try and get that identity pulling into the web, because we think the identity of a caller is a really valuable thing. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that if you're a web developer or you're an app developer of any sort, we have your back. We're trying to do all this so you can focus on what it is that you should be doing. So I'm now going to try and show you just how simple the Phono API is to use. So this is there you go. So that's how you make a phone call in Phono. That's as much JavaScript as you need in order to make a phone call in Phono. And to prove this is the case, I'll reload the page, and then I will run this code. I have this page set up so that as I tap the line, it actually runs it. So the first thing I need to do is just associate myself with our server and assign myself an API, apply my API key. And then with any luck, assuming that I've done that right, when I click on this dial, I get an allow box, as you do in these things. Come on, you're going to work. You really are. Maybe not, maybe. There we go.
Thank you for calling reservations. We set a high bar. Why your call may be
Thank you for calling the Sheraton. Duran speaking. What day we looking to check in?
Oops. So, and you can call, you can call SIP addresses. You don't have to prank call people. So my point is that it's that easy. It's only a few lines of JavaScript, and then you can get on with the thing that you should be doing, which is to build great apps. So that's what I want to talk about in my last few minutes, is who is using the Phono API and what for, to try and give you some inspiration about why you might want to try and do the same thing. So Radio Waves is a call center, specialist call center that sells adverts to local radio, on local radio to local businesses. And they use the Phono API to build their call center agents. And because it allows them to deploy new agents with a very low capital investment. All they need to do is to roll out a browser-based thing, a headset, and they're done. And it allows them to integrate the workflow very closely into the agent's desk. But obviously, all the calls go out to the PSTN. So this is their screen, and it's blurry not only because it's on a small Android screen, but actually also because we deliberately blurred out the detail, because this is a live call that they screenshot. So this is some guy's details, so we had to blur it. So there's another screen with their dialer up and doing stuff. And then totally differently, we have Babelverse, who do a translation service for conferences, like this one, for example. So in theory, Babelverse might be sitting here with a couple of people translating simultaneously into other languages so that remote viewers who were watching on a video stream could have a local translation, or local users. And they have a different set of requirements. They'd use some PSTN fallback, but they want really high quality audio so that the translators can hear clearly what the people are saying. And they need to be able to scale up and down really fast. And that's a picture of a conference they've done. And here's a nice picture of Hermione. And then you can do things like virtual training. Again, we have a user doing that, and their emphasis is on, again, high-quality video and the ability to build and pull up and down conference groups so that they can kind of break out into breakout sessions, pull groups back together, and this kind of stuff. So that's an attempt to make it feel like you're really there, but not actually have to physically go to the training session. This is what their API, their interface looks like. Then we have health insurance. That's kind of, more sensible business. That's more like the kind of classic click-to-call type thing. We have Twellophone. So Twellophone do, I don't know if any of you have come across it, but it's essentially the idea of taking the Twitter namespace, and you can kind of tweet at somebody saying, hey, how are you getting on? Should we have a chat? And then you can move to IM in Twellophone, and then Twellophone can then upgrade you to voice or video. It does presence, but essentially it's about rendezvousing through Twitter into a more interactive, real-time experience. This is what their user interface looks like. And then Verbal, which I demonstrated last night for any of you who were here, which is, again, it's a hyper-voice app. It makes voice storable and indexed, and it's experimental, but it's kind of like you can jump to the right place in a recorded conference call immediately and search it. And that's what their interface looks like. So my point, kind of the summary that I want to get over is that in 1905, it looked like physics was totally understood. Physicists acted, they knew it all pretty much. There were just a couple of edge problems they weren't really totally comfortable with. So they went off and investigated that, and it turns out that solving one of them revealed the entire quantum universe. And we've been doing like 100 years of physics since, trying to work out what that actually means. And my feeling is that WebRTC could do the same sort of thing to communication. It can open up a whole series of new ways of doing communication that we haven't really thought about. And just those apps that I've just shown you kind of give you a sense of where we might want to end up. So thanks for that. And if you want to catch me in the hall, we have a stand here. And it's really easy to find because I have Space Invaders on my back. Thank you very much.